I'm going to show you how to get 10 or more scholarship offers if your kid plays soccer. Okay. And so for some context, I've generated more than 60 interested coaches specifically for soccer players in the last 3 weeks for clients of ours. And I'm just going to show you exactly how we were able to do this. Okay. So we're going to come back to this diagram a couple times throughout this video. But for now, we're going to hang out here. All right. And this is going to be the process of how you're going to go from having little to no interest all the way to getting interest and then eventually getting a scholarship offer. So there's two real steps that we're trying to accomplish here in the process. The first is generating that first conversation with coaches where they have no idea who your kid is, and then eventually they learn who they are. And then over time, we want to turn that interest into real scholarship offers that you can accept and your kid has an actual place to play. And hopefully you can get a little discount on that education. Okay, so the first piece of this is we need 100 schools on a target list. And you might be thinking 100 schools, Jack, you're crazy. My kid is not interested in 100 schools. Let me explain why this is so critical because I'm serious about 100 schools, okay? So in the recruiting process, here's how most families do this, okay? When they put together their list of schools that they're interested in that they want to contact either through email or Twitter or something like that, they usually have 10 to 30 schools. They say, listen, we're going to go try and generate interest from these 10 or 30 schools, and they filter this down. And what happens is, over the next, let's say, year to year and a half, okay, they try to generate interest from these schools. And if they're not able to do that, then they say at some point, hey, we need to branch out. We need to go see if we can generate interest from maybe some other schools. Maybe we were a little bit too selective in the beginning, so let's open it up. And they add about 20 schools to that list. And eventually, they have a list of about 30 to 50 schools, okay? And then they're going to see for about half a year or 6 months if they can generate interest from these schools. And if they're not able to do that after expanding their list, then they will do what I call mega expand, which is saying, will anybody, literally anybody, pay attention to me, call me, give me an offer? And they say, listen, we'll just take anything at this point, right? And the problem with this is that by the time that they expand down here, like months or years have gone by. Right? If you started this process, for instance, at the beginning of junior year, and a year to, let's say you do it for a year, you're trying to contact these 10 to 30 schools. So now you're a senior. And then first semester of senior year, you're slightly expanded, right? And now by the time that you actually open it up, you've lost all that time in the process. Now you're a second semester senior, and there are significantly less opportunities as you get deeper and deeper into the process. The most opportunities are going to be early on in the process. And so instead of doing this backwards, I want you to do this the other way, where you cast a wide net in the beginning and then you filter down afterward. Notice in this piece, we filtered first. We took all the schools that there are and we said, these are the 10 to 30 that we're interested in. And then you try to generate interest from these schools. I want you to do the opposite. I want you to try to generate interest from as many schools as you possibly can first. And then once you generate interest, you can filter down the schools from there. Remember, just because you contact a school and they respond and say that they like you does not mean that you have to go to that school. It just means you have another option. And so you take those 50 to 100 schools and you end up with like 5 to 15 that you have interest from, right? And then after that interest, you are left with 3 to 5 options that you can choose from that your kid is seriously excited about. And so instead of senior year being completely behind the 8 ball saying, we will accept anything at any point, please, we don't have any interest. Instead, you're seriously considering 3 to 5 opportunities that you and your kid are incredibly excited about. That is why it's important to generate interest first and then filter down. Now, here's the reason we need 100. Because you're probably still a little bit skeptical and saying, Jack, 100 schools, like that seems a little crazy to me. But this is just math, okay? So I'm going to show you what's good here. Let's say that you email 10 schools, okay? We're just going to use 10 because it's an easy number. So let's say you email 10 schools. By the way, I'm going to bring up a lot of stats here and data here. We've sent probably in the last month and a half or 2 months, probably over 10,000 emails for high school athletes. Okay, so we have a crazy amount of data on this at this point. These are real stats. These are not fake. This is real. Okay, so if you email 10 schools, 8 out of the 10 are going to open the email. That's an 80% open rate. Honestly, this is a little bit generous. If you're doing this without any help and you don't really know what you're doing, you've never been through the recruiting process before, your open rate will probably be lower than that. But for us, we're anywhere from like a 70 to 85% open rate. And this is post a lot of email stuff that made it harder to get high open rates. Before that, we were 80 to 95%, super strong. Okay, so 8 out of the 10 are going to open the email. Of those 8, 6 of them are going to need your position in grad class, about 75%. This number is variable. This is probably the biggest variable in all of these numbers. It's going to depend on how late you are in the process. The earlier you are in the process, the higher this number will be. The later you are, the lower that number will be. But we're just going to say 75% for now. So 6 out of the 8 are going to need your position in grad class. And remember, college coaches recruit based on need. They don't recruit players that they want. They recruit for the positions that they need to fill holes in their roster. So if you have 6 out of 8 that need your position in grad class, 4 of those 6 are going to actually watch your video. That's about a 60% click-through rate on video. That's pretty good. That means that you have a good email. We've seen this as high as like 75%, but 60 to 70% is incredibly strong. Most athletes are probably not even going to get there, but we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And so 4 are going to actually watch the video. And finally, 1 out of those 4 are going to think you're good and respond. So that's 25%. This is going to depend on your talent level. If you are a super good player, that number might be 3. If you're a pretty dang good player, that number might be 2. And if you're just a good player, it's going to be about 1. And so if you send 10 emails, you can expect roughly 1 response, right? This is why it's critical to email 100 schools, because this is cold email. It simply requires high volume. There's no other way around it. College recruiting is incredibly competitive nowadays. You know, the days of sending like 20 emails and getting a bunch of responses, they're gone. Like, they're just simply gone. So nowadays, if you send 20, let's just play this out, right? If you're going to send you're going to send 10 emails and you get 1 response. That means if you send 20, you'll get 2. If you send 30, you'll get 3. And that assumes that all of these stats right here are true, which is generous. These are very difficult to achieve. And so eventually, if you send 100, you'll get 10 responses. Great. We are well on our way to getting the interest that we're looking for. And again, this number right here could be significantly higher if you are a good player. If you're a really good player, that number might be 20. We've had multiple players, like when I up here, right, when I said that we've generated this for players just in the last 3 weeks, there were a couple that generated 20 or more interested schools, right? Because they're good players and because we did all of these things really well. So the whole point why I'm trying to tell you this is that we do need 100 schools. Yes, it is possible. I promise you can get there too, okay? The second piece of this, we already have our list of 100 schools. Fantastic. The second piece that we need to do now is we need a 3-part email sequence. Now, for some sports, we'll talk about generating interest on Twitter. We'll talk about generating interest in email. There's lots of ways to generate interest in the recruiting process. Some sports, it's easier to do that via Twitter. For soccer specifically, we have found that it's easier to generate this with email. All the interest that you just saw that I've been talking about getting, that has all come from email. It has not come from Twitter, okay? So you're going to do a 3-part email sequence. Here's what that sequence is going to look like. You're going to send an initial email. In that initial email, you're really only trying to do 2 things. You're trying to give some basic background info on the kid, and then you're going to point them to your YouTube channel. This is the whole reason for sending your email in the first place, is to get them to watch your video. There's no other reason to send an email to a college coach. You are trying to get them to watch your video. Now, if they respond to this, great. We're going to talk about what to do in a second up here. We're going to talk about all this good stuff. But for now, if they don't respond, you're going to send follow-up number 1. Follow-ups are incredibly important because the majority of your responses are actually going to come from follow-ups. They're not going to come from the initial email. So it's critical that you send follow-ups to these schools. So you're going to say, and the whole sentiment of this is, do you need position in grad class? Because if they do, you want to point them back to this video. So the whole point of this first follow-up, the second email in the sequence, is basically saying, hey, do you need this position in grad class? Now, if they respond to this email, then you shut it off and you just continue with what I'm going to teach you in a couple minutes. But if they don't respond, then you're going to send follow-up number 2. And follow-up number 2 is all about showing genuine interest. Hey, I am genuinely interested in your school. Do you need my position in grad class? And then hopefully if they do, then again, you're going to point them to YouTube. The thing about these follow-ups, and we used to, by the way, for what it's worth, we used to do a follow-up number 3 down here, but this email performed terribly. The follow-up here, number 2, still gets great metrics from what we've seen. It was once we hit this third follow-up down here that all the data says it's overkill. You don't need to do that. These ones are absolutely critical though. So what happens is when someone responds to one of your emails, you don't send the subsequent emails, the following emails. So for instance, if someone replies to your initial email, then you don't send these follow-ups. If someone doesn't respond to the initial email, then you send them the first follow-up. If they respond to the first one, you don't send the second one. If they don't respond to either of the first 2, then you send the third one. This is how you're going to generate the most amount of exposure, that you're going to give yourself the best possible chance to get responses from college coaches. And so what are you doing? We already mentioned this. You are pushing these coaches from the email to your YouTube video. And specifically, I'm going to recommend that you use YouTube because it's the best for so many reasons that I'm not going to go into right now because that's not what this video is about. But I recommend that you use YouTube. Here's what I want you as a soccer player specifically to have on your YouTube channel. Okay, there's 4 things. We can break these up further, but this is sort of like the 80-20 of what your channel is going to look like. The first thing that I want on your channel are full games. You need at least 2 to 4. If you have more than that, great. These are just raw footage. You don't need to do any editing. It's just raw footage of that game. The only thing that you might want to include is if it's like Trace or something, right, where it has the arrow on the kid so that they know which kid it is, right? That would be helpful. Other than that, you're just uploading the full game. The reason why is because in soccer, there's a ton of off-ball movement, right? It's not always about the one goal that happens. It's about all the off-ball movement. And so a lot of coaches want to see the full games. So I want you to have full games on your channel. And then I also want you to showcase both offense and defensive videos. You need both. Even if you are an attacking player, you need to show videos of you taking the ball away from people, of you doing good things without the ball in your possession. Super important. So on offense and defense, these clips are going to be 10 to 30 seconds. These are incredibly short. Remember, we are going to show off-ball movement, and we're also going to do that with longer highlights, which I'll talk about in a second. We're going to show off-ball movement, but these right here are specifically about the skills that you are showcasing here, right? You're showcasing offensive skills, you're showcasing defensive skills, and they're 10 to 30 seconds. You want short clips because you want to hook the coach in. You want them to see the really short period where something amazing happens. You don't want that to get lost in the shuffle. So these are going to be really short clips. And then you're also going to have longer highlights. Longer highlights are 1 to 3 minutes long. So they're longer than these 10 to 30 second clips, but they're not quite as long as these full games. And so this would be where you're still showing off-ball footage, but it would be like off-ball footage leading to the big thing. So for instance, let's say that you have a goal. Let's say you're an attacking player, right? And you have a goal that you score. So for instance, the offensive video would be the goal itself, like the actual shot, right? And so this might only be 10 or 15 seconds. But then the other thing that you're going to do, right, is you're going to have a longer highlight video that's, let's say, 2 minutes long, right? Where you're going to show the lead up to the goal, the off-ball movement of you getting in position or your kid getting in position to score that goal. So now they're going to be able to see the goal itself really quickly. They're going to be able to see the off-ball movement that led there. And then again, you're going to push them back to the game video where they can see how the whole game evolved and the goal fits into the greater scheme of the full game. Notice how this is not a 3-minute highlight video, a 5-minute highlight video. This is very, very different. This is a key piece. This right here is a key piece to getting responses to your emails from college coaches. How good your channel is here will dictate how many responses you get here. The better this channel is, the more conversations that you will be able to start. Okay, so we're off to a good start here. So we have 100 schools on a list. We've done our 3-part email sequence with 2 follow-ups. We're pushing them to a YouTube channel that is intentionally designed to get them to watch more videos, to get them to watch those videos for longer, showcasing all the skills that your kid can perform as a soccer player. Great. That hopefully means that we are now generating these first conversations. Like I said, the first conversations in the last 3 weeks, we've generated more than 60 of them with soccer coaches. What I'm teaching you right now, it works. Okay. So from this first conversation, the conversation is going to move in 2 ways. Okay. There's 2 ways that the coach is really going to take it. The first way that they're going to take it is they're going to say, awesome, please send us your schedule. We want to come watch you play. They might say, hey, we have a camp coming up. Would you like to come to our camp? They might say, hey, send us your schedule so that we can come watch you. There's lots of ways they can do this, but they're going to want to come watch you play. That would be the first one, okay? The second thing, and this is pretty common as well, is that they're going to ask for more info. So more info can look like a lot of different ways, right? They might ask for your test scores. They might ask for your transcripts. They might ask for your coach's contact information. They might ask for more video on you, right? They're just trying to get some sort of more information on you. And by the way, some of this more information that I just mentioned, it might also happen in between here if they're not going to come watch you play for a while, right? But in this case, we're saying, hey, they haven't said that they're going to come watch you play yet. So they just want more information. Your goal is to make sure that the conversation does not stop here. And I guess I shouldn't X that out. I should put a line here. If the conversation stops here, and for instance, you send your transcripts, right? And then the coach goes dark and you didn't bridge this gap between these 2 things right here, then you've lost. And that relationship is going to fizzle out and you're going to lose that interest in that opportunity. We cannot let that happen. We must, it is critical, continue the conversation. The easiest way to do that is just say, hey, is it cool if I keep you updated with new video? Coach says, yes, that is totally cool. I'm stoked about that. And you now head into following up regularly with that school. Now, follow-ups look different based on where you're at in the process, how many schools you're talking to, how interested the coach is, what grade you are, what time of year it is, right? There's so many ifs, ands, and buts regarding these follow-ups. And so I'm not going to dive into them now because I could literally film like a 3-hour video just on follow-ups. And so the point is that you're just trying to continue the conversation. You don't want the conversation to die. That is all I'm concerned about. Now, specifically, follow-ups is also going to move into 2 things. The first is that you can point people back to your YouTube channel. This is like the easiest way to follow up with coaches when you're not sure what to say. Instead of saying, hey, coach, just checking in. I know we haven't talked in a while. How are you? Right? You're not actually providing any value to the college coach. You're not moving the relationship forward in any meaningful way. The easiest way to change that is to just simply attach new video. Hey, have some new video for you. Here you go. Right? And so now you're providing the coach with video on a player that they've already expressed interest in. You're making their life easier. Beautiful. We're going to be able to continue that conversation. We're going to stay top of mind, but we're also providing meaningful value to that coach. Then you're going to use Twitter for relevancy. So I mentioned before that we can use email and Twitter to generate interest, and some sports rely more heavily on Twitter than email. It just depends. But specifically for soccer, we're going to use Twitter for relevancy, meaning that Twitter, or relevancy and also recency, we can say both, but Twitter is essentially going to be your profile. You don't need a profile on some other random recruiting site. You can use Twitter as your profile, and we're going to use it for recency. When I say recency, what I mean is that you can be much more informal on Twitter than you can be on YouTube. YouTube is like your pretty baby. It's like the diamond. It's like, we're going to keep this super clean and all of the best clips, and we're going to organize it really neatly, right? Twitter is like, hey, I went to a lesson this morning and I played really well. Here are a couple clips. Boom, Twitter, right? Hey, I played a game last night, went well. Here's a clip. Boom. And so it's all informal stuff. You might even say, hey, I won an award last night. Here's a picture of me with my award. Hey, I just got honors list. Here's that, So there's lots of things that you can do, but you're basically keeping the coach updated on where you're at and what you're doing, right? And there's more ways that you can utilize Twitter, but again, that's not really what this video is about. So Twitter for recency, and eventually where we're trying to push to is, again, that we want the coach to come watch you play. The point is that if a coach comes and watches you play and really likes you, then you're way ahead of the ball game. You're way ahead of the ball game, and then we have to move them into what's called interest converters, okay? Interest converters, if we come back up here, the recruiting process is split into 3 pieces, okay? You have the first piece here at the top, which are your interest generators. This is where you don't have any interest, right? This is no interest at the top, and you're trying to move down this funnel to where you're getting scholarships and roster spots. So at the very top, you have interest generators, things that are putting you on the map and getting on college coaches' radars. Then down here, you have what are called interest builders. This is where you're taking the interest you have and you're growing it over a period of time. And then eventually you're going to reach a section or a threshold rather, where a college coach is interested enough that now you need to convert that into actual scholarship offers. You need all 3 pieces of these. So when we talk about interest converters, I'm primarily talking about phone calls, texting, and other recruiting events. It's also worth noting that these are going to be follow-up conversations as well, right? And so follow-up conversations play both roles. They play an interest builder and an interest converter. And so a huge piece of follow-up conversations is video, right? And so continuing to provide video, so video will also be an important interest converter, right? And so the whole point is that they've already seen you play, and now we're just trying to close the deal. So you're like on the 5-yard line, the 1-yard line, and all we're trying to do is use these interest converters to finally get some scholarship money. And this is how you generate interest as a soccer player. This is what we've been doing in the last few weeks. It has worked like absolute gangbusters. But let me tell you the issues that I see people running into and why they don't get the interest that we have been able to generate is because here they only have 20 to 30 schools on this list. Or here, when they send an email, they only send 1 email. They don't send 3 emails. Or here, when they create their YouTube channel, they just make 1 3-minute highlight video instead of having multiple types of videos, right? Where you have full game videos, short clips, and medium clips, right? They generate the first conversation, they give the coach more info, but then they stop there and they never actually continue the conversation. They don't follow up regularly. They don't use Twitter for recency, right? And then they don't put any emphasis on interest converters whatsoever. And so they never end up getting these scholarships. But the good news for you is that you're watching this video right now. So this should be totally within reach, and you should be able to do this. So hopefully, if you are a soccer player, this gives you a really good idea of what this looks like. I've put some more resources down in the description below, and I will see you guys next time.